at later times, and also that we make sure we get our minutes correct. If you are in the audience and have questions, please just wait to be recognized before speaking. Our agenda and materials are available online through the DPI website, which is www.dpi.nc.gov. Also, the agenda should have been sent to you, I believe, Carl, if I'm right, it was sent out on Friday, along with the last meeting's minutes. Those were sent out by Cindy Taylor as well. So we are being audio streamed through a link located at the bottom of the Driver Ed Advisory Committee page as well. I have to read an ethics statement. It is required of us, so I'm going to go ahead and read through this. Committee members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this committee. Does any committee member or any member of the committee know of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair, myself. It'll be then your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on that matter and voting on that matter. Okay. At this time, I'd like to invite Cindy Taylor to go ahead and do an official roll call for the meeting. Cindy?
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's start with our roll call. Devin Tanner.
Present.
Kathy Short. Dr. Brandon Simmons. Jeff Moore. Carol Ann Hutchins. Sarah Martin. Mark Ezel.
Is that Mark Ezel? Okay.
All right, Stephen Lowry. Paul DeLuey. Michael Newsom. Dr. Shanae Flood.
Present.
Thank you. Captain Troy Pope. Mark Shepard. Martin Rickman. Craig Uzel.
Here.
Marvin Smith. Natalie O'Brien.
I'm here.
Doug Eller. Wyatt Smith.
Present.
Carl Logan.
Present.
Tanya Easterwood.
Present.
Reggie Fleiss.
Present.
Amelia Royster Davis.
Present.
All right, Mr. Tanner.
Can we confirm? Did Doug Eller chime in?
Taylor is on, yeah.
Okay, I see he's on here. I didn't hear him chime in.
Yeah.
Okay. Carl, can you confirm that we do in fact have a quorum?
Cindy.
I am looking through the chat right now, Mr. Tanner. I had some issues hearing a lot of people.
As did I.
Okay, Mr. Tanner, we do have 10.
Perfect. So at this time, I just want to go ahead and we'll have approval of the minutes from the last meeting. The minutes from the previous committee meeting have been prepared and been made available to you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So move.
Okay, who is that?
Doug Eller.
Okay, Doug Eller. And then do I have a second?
Marvin Smith, second.
Okay. Was there any discussion points that needed to be brought up at all about the minutes from last meeting? Anybody saw anything at all? Okay, we'll go ahead and just have a vote on that. If Carl, if it's okay with you, what we'll do is just ask if there are any
Nays.
opposed.
Okay.
So at this time, if there are any opposed to approving the minutes from last time, could you just go ahead and unmute yourself and speak now? Okay, so moved. Minutes from the last meeting are approved. At this time, I want to go ahead and move the meeting over to Carl Logan for our NCDPI update and discussion. And I know that he's got a wide swath of things to talk about that's going to set the tone for the rest of the meeting. So Carl, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Devin. And thank you all, and echoing what Devin has just, thanking you for being on this meeting this morning. All of us, our state and our country, and the world is involved in a tremendous, challenging time, and none of us are immune to anything that's going on. Our thoughts and prayers to those people who have lost loved ones, those who have been hospitalized, those who are going through challenges because of the economic impact that this has had on our society. And it's a difficult thing that we have to be in this situation as leaders, because it's kind of unprecedented, and not really understanding and knowing the magnitude of what we're dealing with, which is bled over into what we are trying to do with reopening of schools. It's been a tremendously challenging task. I will try to hit the highlights here, and then my staff will also include in a few items that we have been working on to assist in reopening of the driver education program. Back in May, shortly after the driver ed advisory committee meeting, we had a series of restart meetings where we included the LEAs and allowed them to provide feedback and collaboration with what was going to happen and trying to reopen the program. As you know, March 15th, the program was shut down and left us without a program for several months there. With those meetings, almost 100% of our LEAs participated along with other stakeholders in these series of meetings. After that, driver education participated in the school nutrition and transportation work groups and the reopening of schools task force that produced a lighting our way forward document. It's North Carolina's guidance on reopening of the K-12 schools. You can find this document on the DPI splash page. There's a link there that you can click into, and it'll provide you with what the schools have been provided for reopening. The North Carolina State Board of Education and the Department of Public Instruction consultation and response to guidelines issued by the Department of Health and Human Services have developed guidance to support the public school units. We are using that term now. I think that's being transitioned from the LEA, so it's PSUs, and that we are providing guidance and support to the public schools and the communities in determining their plans and strategies for reopening of schools. It's a very comprehensive document. It outlines 3 plans. Plan A would be minimal social distancing. Plan B is moderate social distancing, and Plan C is remote learning. As you know, driver education has 2 different phases, the classroom part and the behind the wheel part phase. Obviously, the classroom phase will be governed just like any other classroom at the school district level. So we'll follow whatever the school is following. House Bill 158 was passed, became session law 2020-30. It provided more guidance for behind the wheel. It outlined students who were in class from January till we shut down at COVID on March the 15th. Those students who were in class who had less than 15 hours, are allowed to take the proficiency test to test out of the program or to comply with the classroom requirement phase. The only problem with that is that most districts would do this in a traditional setting. They did not have access to the buildings, and they may still not have access to buildings. Those students with more than 15 hours were deemed to have completed the program. This bill also gave the authority to LEAs to restart behind the wheel, and after a significant amount of consideration and consultation with HHS and CDC, guidance was given to the schools on July the 10th. Therefore, after July the 10th, the districts were allowed to make their preparations and restart the behind the wheel portion. And to date, in just a few minutes, I believe Tanya has some statistics on the number of districts that have restarted classroom and or behind the wheel. But first, as we're moving into this, there's a significant number of projects that DPI had going on. And what we'll do is we'll just go down the row here, and I'm going to call on Dr. Amelia Royster Davis to give an update on our student curriculum. It was already in progress. As you know, that we are developing a digitized curriculum that is hosted on Canvas, and there is the completion of that curriculum was just right around the corner, and we decided to focus on finishing that curriculum, and as opposed to moving in any other direction. So, Dr. Royster Davis, could you give us an update on the student curriculum?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Just want to do a quick sound check.
You're doing good.
Okay, awesome. So in collaboration with our lead subject matter expert, Mrs. Angela Stevenson, she is working or had worked on the student curriculum. And so we've been able to transition the paper format to a digital student curriculum. Very excited to have gotten that completed. actually back in June. So that course is complete. It is available in the Canvas Learning Management System. We anticipate rolling that out in September. So we have trained about 80 instructors and coordinators from 8 LEAs and 1 driving school. So we're working with them to get them comfortable with Canvas. So we did do a 2-week training with them starting July 20th, and it ran through the end of the month. And just to get them comfortable and learn how to navigate Canvas. We do understand that some LEAs may use Canvas, don't. So it was very important to help them learn just how to navigate Canvas from that point. And moving forward, our professional development plan will include some ongoing trainings within Canvas. We also anticipate starting a new onboarding for those LEAs who are interested in coming on for the second wave or second phase of rolling out the student curriculum. So we do expect maybe around October to start recruiting, so to speak, LEAs to come on board and again do the onboarding for them in October. And then as we continue throughout the phase, again, we will make sure that all the LEAs and instructors are trained on how to use Canvas, how to navigate the student curriculum, and hopefully have this rolled out by the summer or end of next year throughout the entire state. So we do feel really good about the LEAs. We believe they're excited, but there's a lot going on with COVID, restarting the program, and starting school. So there's a lot going on right now. Our professional development will resume after Labor Day. We want to give those LEAs, participating LEAs, time to adjust to being back in school, and then we'll resume that training in September to again provide a high level of support to them as they are the first to facilitate the student curriculum online. So we're very excited about that. Very appreciative of those LEAs that volunteered. And again, we want to provide a high level of support. So we're going to be there to do everything we can. We do have a small team, but do everything that we can to help this project be successful.
Amelia, could you also give us some ideas on professional development coming down the road? Or
Sure. I just put that to the side. I'm sorry, I misplaced my paper, but so we will probably offer some supplemental training in what we covered in the Canvas course. So in the month of September, we will just actually go through the student course to make sure that instructors have a good understanding of not only what the student sees, but again, their side of the student course. We'll go through grading, chat, and conferences again, as some LEAs may be face-to-face and some are still doing it online. So we want to make sure that, or we'll facilitate driver education online. So we want to make sure that they are comfortable with facilitating conferences and meetings online. Future training could include, I have a list, again, it's not in front of me. I don't know what happened. So future trainings would include teaching online. So we have a separate course of just how to create your own course, your own activities, and assessing learning online. So that's a course. And then working with students with disabilities or accessibility concerns. That is a separate course as well that I foresee us rolling out in the near future.
all right, thank you very much. We will have a quick Q&A here in just a moment, but you might yourself again. Tanya, can you bring us up to date on the actual training of the LEAs on the new curriculum?
Sure. For the training on the LEAs on the new curriculum, as Amelia stated earlier, we have had one-on-one sessions as it relates to training them how to use the tool. Cindy and I have been having one-on-one sessions with each district that has decided they wanted to try to be a part of the pilot. And what that does is allow them to see the course, kind of cover what roles and responsibilities they will have as we are trying to adopt and implement the student curriculum. Um, we did, well, I won't call it a roadblock, but we did run into the barrier of now we are dealing with COVID and having to shift with program restart. So because of that, our pilot now looks a little different, and we've shifted from, just really focused on trying to get them acclimated with the pilot and adoption to, providing support to the district so that as they're restarting their program, letting them know that we're here and how can we support them in those manners. And then in addition to that, how are we going to help them and assist with follow-up sessions as they are trying to understand the curriculum, what would it look like in their county, what would registration now look like. As Mr. Logan have said, we do have the curriculum inside of Canvas, but in addition to the digital curriculum being in Canvas, we also took a look at one of the other things we have that we felt was a barrier in the state, which was registration processes. And so we adopted Canvas Catalog to assist with the registration process. So we are also kind of piloting that. We had additional counties to reach out, Johnston County and Orange County most recently, and we've kind of talked through some of those. And with Johnston County, we're talking about various scenarios, especially with them already having a parent program, how we can possibly leverage the observer role for the parents and what that might look like. But that, of course, is down the road because we are pretty much really just focused on helping them get restarted and figuring out how we can help in those basic scenarios. As Amelia has mentioned, originally our plan was to have a full rollout by summer 2021, but because we are having to pivot and shift, that may look a little different. We're unsure at this moment, but we will start back the trainings as you mentioned in September, and then also possibly trying to have some virtual town hall meetings beginning sometime around October, November. So it would give the other counties the ability to possibly see the course, ask some questions, and maybe we can gather data from the field so we can figure out what are the best next steps and what would a next phase rollout look like and how do we make sure we're successful in that. So those are the things that we have been doing so far. The counties did, Canvas is digital online, so we did hear the counties say they need a handbook. So Cindy and I are pulling resources together to create a handbook based on the Canvas resources, and then kind of I guess we're going to kind of like make it look like driver ed so that they'll know. It just gives them the recipe of simplifying the processes so they don't have to worry about the double duplication. The map that Mr. Logan is currently sharing was our original pilot group. Some of those have had, as I said, have had to shift, and because of some of those shifts, we haven't been able to roll out in all of those counties, but we have had other counties that have reached out, and we've continuously had one-on-ones and making sure all their high schools and sites are set up. And maybe in November we can kind of show you guys what that county looked like, what the curriculum looks like, and what that registration process looks like as well. But so far, we've had some really great experiences. We've also had received some really great feedback. One thing we do realize is registration is done differently in various districts, and then how do we make sure that the platform that we have can support them in those efforts? And so we're kind of thinking through all of those as well. But so far, it's been an amazing journey with the curriculum, being finalized and working with everyone, with Angie, Reggie, Amelia, with all of our various backgrounds and pulling it together, small resources, but able to pull off a huge project. It's been amazing. And then working with the districts, it's been really, really great. So pretty much that's kind of where we are now. We're kind of in between of rolling out the pilot, but then also doing a whole lot of follow up and support. We designed a internal help desk for ourselves to assist with a lot of the questions, and that help desk has been placed inside of Canvas, and we are testing it out with our communication platform that Cindy put together using Microsoft Teams. so that it'll help us be able to capture support questions and things of that nature to also help with the digital student program. So we've been extremely busy, but with COVID and us having to shift, as you can see, it's been quite interesting, but it's been a lot of fun. So that's pretty much where we are. We have a lot of meetings set up still currently this week with follow-ups with some of the LEAs and counties as they're asking questions and preparing for the curriculum pilot. So that's all that I have. Are there any questions?
Tanya, did you have the statistics on the number of LEAs that have restarted? You don't have that.
Yes, those numbers I thought were in the PowerPoint, but if they're not, out of the 114 counties, okay, this slide here shows actually all counties except for two. Cindy and Mr. Logan worked on the information, and based on the data, Halifax County and Stanley County, we have not received anything from. I report it all. However, we do have 37 districts that have began the classroom phase, and then we have 76 districts that have not began the classroom phase. We have 94 districts that are offering behind the wheel, and then we have 19 districts that are not offering behind the wheel. And then we have 16 districts that have not began at all. So we kind of
Okay. Tanya, how many districts are participating in the rollout of the or the testing phase of the curriculum?
we are back now at we have 8 counties that are currently participating in the rollout. We originally had I think we started with 6. We had some that were unable to finish, and then we had some to join. So we're right at 8 districts.
Okay. As a reminder to everyone that DPI was already in progress of complying with the driver education strategic plan, the 2015 assessment, and the 2010 OSBM study that asked us to think about in using technology in the classroom and have a standard curriculum. And so that project was already underway. Coincidentally, COVID has given us a more of a need of having it. So coincidentally, we were finishing up with the curriculum at the time COVID has hit. Since then, we've had a number of districts that have come to us to ask us for access or to be able to use the curriculum, which we are not allowing it as of yet, but we're trying to rush that through to get to the point where we can offer that as a solution to the districts that don't have access to a curriculum. As Tanya mentioned, there are 76 districts that are currently not offering classroom, and we don't know exactly why that would be at the moment. We anticipate that most likely is because they have such a tremendous backlog of behind the wheel students that they don't need to do any classroom. Some of it might be of various other reasons. Part of the information that, or part of the goal of today's meeting would be to gain some insight on some additional questions that we could ask the LEAs to find out exactly how we can support them. Next on their list, in just a few minutes after Reggie, I'm going to ask that University of North Carolina Highway Research Center give an update on a study that they will be participating in. But Reggie, can you give us an update on the teacher certification program?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Carl. A brief update on the teacher training. This past spring 2020, we had a cohort that we had 14 participants complete. Of those, 10 are new teachers desiring 096 certification, and we are working them through that process right now of obtaining the 096 license. Our fall 2020 Registration has begun, and our fall cohort will begin on Tuesday, September the 8th. We are really excited about the teacher training program and what we've been able to do to this point. It is very engaging for the participants that go through it, and it is meeting the needs to certify new teachers in this state. Coming up August 24th through the 27th, ANSTI, the Association of National Stakeholders in Traffic Safety Education, they are presenting a virtual professional development workshop series. The titles include Classroom Teaching and Learning Theories, Virtual Classroom Teaching and Learning, Advanced Driver Assistance Systems and the Role of the Driver Educator, and segments of the ANSTI BTW Teaching and Learning Theories. For those who may be interested, you can go to atsea.org, that's ADTSEA.org, or you can go to ANSTSE.info to join. These workshops are free, and those of you who participate, we will be getting an attendance list from ANSTI, and we'll be able to provide certificates for your participation. That's it for me right now. Are there any questions?
You just mentioned how to register for the classroom phase. I believe that was a question in our chat room by Davie County. I think I saw that.
Okay, if you want to register, get in contact with Cindy, Cindy Taylor, cindy.taylor@dpi.nc.gov, and we will get you on the list. Participants need to be, you need to be referred by your driver education coordinator. We're asking that coordinators send in any participants because eventually, you know, the coordinators and mentors in that county will be working directly with them. So we prefer it to be done that way. So email Cindy if you have an interest or you need a teacher.
Also, this past week, we have been working very closely with the regional superintendent support team, and we have been included in the superintendent's weekly top 10 of last week. There was a flyer attached there. It's number 3. There's a flyer in there marketing for recruitment of teachers at the local level. On that particular flyer, there is a QR code that you can scan with your phone, and they'll pop up in there. It'll give you a tremendous amount of information about registering for this course, and also there's a blank in there where you can fill it in and do just what Reggie asked us. You can send it to us, and we'll send it back to the coordinator or the county where you are, because you must be referred by the county, or at least you need to have some communication with the county that you're intending to work in. So with that, I don't see any other questions in the chat room. Thank you very much. And last but not least, not part of the DPI, but we consider her Natalie O'Brien with UNC Highway Research Center. Natalie and I and the whole team over there have a renewed interest in communicating and working together on the driver education and traffic safety education. Obviously, they are very interested in traffic safety education, as North Carolina, I like to tout this, North Carolina was first in the graduated driver license. So without further ado, I'll give you Natalie O'Brien and give an update on what you're doing over there at Highway Research.
Okay, I'll just give you a brief update of a study that we just recently got underway. It's a short study. It has a 6-month timeline, but we are examining the impact of COVID-19 on teen drivers, safety and mobility in North Carolina. So we are, in order to do that, we are looking at driver education data, so looking at enrollment and completion, how that's been impacted. We're looking at driver licensing data, examining crash data, and we'll also be doing surveys and focus groups with parents of teen drivers in the state. And one reason we're doing that is you might be aware that there have been some bills introduced, so far 5 bills, and one has been passed that impacts teen drivers in North Carolina. And so we're hoping to compile this data to help inform the policy decisions that are being made that are likely to impact young driver safety in the coming years. So that's the main gist of it, but it's a fast-moving project. Like I said, it has a very short timeline. We're hoping to get all that information together to help make these decisions in our state.
Okay, thank you, Natalie, and very concise report. And so we are working with them. We will be putting out a poll, a more comprehensive poll to our LEAs to determine what it is that we can do to help support them, but we need to find out what that is. So we're hoping that we will get that information back very soon, and we will share that information with UNC Highway Research Center. So thank you, Natalie, for what you all do over there. With that, we can segue into the next area, Devin, that you would like to talk about on the agenda. But this has been quite a comprehensive and challenging time for us at DPI, and I know that the LEAs have, and there's a number of them on this call, and getting the program restarted. And as we already heard from Tanya, there's a number of districts who have not restarted. That may be for a number of reasons. We will find out what those are and see what we can do to assist. We know that the pandemic doesn't affect everybody in the same manner, and that they may be still having challenges locally with those things. So I'll give it back to you, Devin. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Carl. At this point, usually we would go ahead and approve the agenda. And what I really want to do at this point is just, you guys have the agenda in front of you. Is there anything that anybody feels needs to be added to this agenda rather than getting a motion and a second and a vote? Is there anything that anybody sees that needs to be added to today's agenda to be added to this meeting? I want to get down to the new business here fairly quickly because I want to have a discussion on, there's a lot of us that have questions and ways that we've been doing things in opening back up, or questions as to why certain LEAs are not opened. And as Carl said, we want to make sure that we're giving you the support and making sure you have the resources to be able to do so. So I want to get to that portion. Is there any, I guess I'll just ask, is there anybody that sees anything about this agenda that needs to be added to the agenda? If not, we'll go ahead and move forward. At this point, normally I would have Vice Chair Kathy go ahead and give a subcommittee update, but we have none at this point, and there is no old business to cover. So what I'd like to do is move into the new business. And as you can see on the screen, that Carl has provided us kind of a five different organizations or parts of the driver ed program along the top: DPI, DMV, LEA, classroom, and behind the wheel. Carl, were you trying to say something?
No, just to follow up what you were just saying there. We felt like that this would be a great opportunity to have all of the stakeholders that hold seats on this advisory committee have some open dialogue on challenges, and we felt like that this table would help to guide our conversations. So if we could basically just divide up the rest of our time into these particular areas and discuss these. So we'll kind of take a systematic approach to discussing these particular areas. We'll go down with under administration. If you'll just start with the left there, DPI. We provided guidance to the LEAs on what they needed to do to restart the behind the wheel piece. The LEAs are having to use the Lighting Our Way document for the classroom phase. Currently, the districts are allowed to reopen their school districts in Plan B, which is moderate social distancing. They can go down to Plan C, but they cannot go up to Plan A. So right now, the governor has given them the ability to reopen in Plan B. There are a number of districts that are still opting for Plan C, and so we are looking at some additional state board policy adjustments. What do we need to make adjustments going forward? We really don't know when this will end. We need to plan for what the possibility of the new norm or the new processes or the new ways of doing business. We don't know what those are yet. It will require some policy changes. Every policy change that we recommend will go through this committee for vetting, and that we would hope that the committee stakeholder members would provide some feedback, or at least be proactive also on providing that information. One of the things that's come up here recently is the fact that there are a number of districts that are restarting classroom, and that we still have the number of students in the classroom being set at 50. However, the executive orders requires us to make some modifications to our practices. I'll just leave it at that. So are there anything else that anybody would want to bring up in that particular area that DPI may need to look at? And in fact, what we may need to do is put this toward the end, because after the discussions under the instruction may reveal some other things. If you don't mind, Devin, I'll go ahead to B. I don't think we have Paul Deloy or Michael Newsom in the call. School bus and traffic safety is responsible for the eye checks for the classrooms. We've had to work with the districts, supervisors, and the district representatives in working out a plan for that. That has been a tremendous undertaking. Devin, you might want to give some insight on what Wake County did, some of that leadership that you all had there at Wake County spread across the rest of the state.
Well, the first thing I did was build a relationship with the person at DMV who's in charge of school bus traffic safety. He's the one that assigns, normally in driver's ed, and I know a lot of you have the same thing. When we're in our classrooms and actually in our schools, they send a DPI representative to do the eye checks during the classroom phase, and so they schedule one of the days of class, and then they do the students one at a time. It takes only about a minute per student, so they're in and out in 30 or 40 minutes. Now, without having classrooms, we are one of the counties that has been doing classroom online, and it took a lot of kind of time and money to train teachers to do virtual driver education, but we've got a pretty good solid foundation now where we feel now that we can get back on our normal schedules, just doing it virtually until we're able to get back into classrooms. But the problem is that we can't do virtual eye checks. So we picked 6 school sites around our county, and I had conversations with principals and administrations about doing that over the summer. And we pretty much just did mass eye checks, similar to how a lot of graduations where it was like a car, you'd roll up in your car, The student would get out. We would socially distance 5 or 6 students at a time, 6 feet apart, and then call them up. And we also had driver ed people on hand to make sure that the I permit was correctly filled out and all that before they got to the actual eye checker. Literally took a minute per kid, and so we have done thousands of kids now. Kids that got stuck in the middle before the shutdown, and then we were able to teach those kids, and kids that had registrations and were they had been placed into classes for April and May. We were able to teach those kids and get their eyes checked as well. It's been extremely successful. I imagined the worst, to be honest, when we started this, but it all went very, very smoothly with DMV and having driver ed staff there to help direct students in traffic and keep everyone safe. And students were required to keep their mask on. The parents were required to stay in the car. So it was similar to like graduation, just kind of a car rider line situation. And we've been able to do that. Now, with school starting back up, I know in Wake County, kids are, at least for the time being, all virtual, but we have teachers going in and out of the schools. Sorry about that. And so, we'll need to kind of make some changes, whether it be using the backs of the schools where there's the bus lines near the gyms and stuff like that. But all we really needed the schools to provide us were a couple of tables, a few chairs, and an extension cord that could be plugged in to the eye checkers. So we didn't have the eye checkers inside the schools, but we had them in front of the doors. Underneath, at least they were underneath cover, so that during the heat of the summer we were able to keep them shaded, and everything went pretty smoothly. I know in Mecklenburg County they did it a little bit different, where they picked one school and they just did it all day and had all their kids kind of show up to that one site around the county. So they did a little bit differently, but it was the same kind of concept. They scheduled a time and a day. All of the teachers let the students know what time and site to go to, and they did kind of a car rider line system.
So the reason that we have this issue is because the driver license office does not do the eye checks. Driver license visits are by appointment only right now, and at one time the driver license offices were down into I think it was the 30s in the number of locations that were open across the state. I think they have around 115, 119 offices around the state, but not all of those were open. But to our knowledge right now, is that they are only doing by appointment only, but they do not do any eye checks for driver education. When we shut down in March, we are always approximately, I would say across the state, probably 2,000 to 3,000 or 2,000 to 5,000 students in a backlog. By the time we restarted here this summer, I would say that we were somewhere between 12,000 and 15,000 students in a backlog. And that's going to take a while to work through. If you consider about 10,000 students per month, that's how we can arrive at those numbers. And so it fluctuated here and there, but it's quite an undertaking to cut into the backlog. Some of the and House Bill 158, it allowed students who were in class not to have to finish, so that also added students to the backlog of students that were waiting or waiting behind the wheel. So again, during this time, this is kind of an open floor. If you have questions, comments, whatever, just unmute yourself and just kind of get our attention. You can raise your hand, or either just unmute yourself and ask or talk about the things that we're talking about on the screen. We know there are local challenges, as I said. We said, I made this joke sometime during the preparation stage. I used to be out in the field. And I used to wonder what Raleigh was thinking about when they did things. Now I've become Raleigh, and I want to know what the people in the field are thinking about. And so we need that guidance from the field. We also need it, especially from this stakeholder committee, because there are things that we don't know, we can't even imagine. I do know this, that there have been some tremendous challenges by students who do not have connectivity or do not have the ability to have the equipment for logging in remotely. So what is the plan there? And we are just like any other discipline. That's a challenge that currently we don't have an answer for. Dr. Shanae Flood with the Division of Non-Public Education is also on the call on the committee. She's director there. I would invite you to mention anything also that may be specific to private school and homeschool students. I think she says she's got another meeting in a couple minutes.
Is there any other I don't know, people involved with LEAs or anybody else that's dealing with eye checks in a different way in any of the other LEAs? Okay. And my suggestion to the LEAs, the driver ed coordinators, any of you that are with us, is to establish that relationship with that DMV personnel who's in charge of school bus and traffic safety. They're the ones that schedule the eye checks, and that has been the biggest thing. They have been very complimentary of the driver ed program here because they didn't know what to do either. They didn't, they don't have access to the sites to do it either, and so it's been it has had to be a symbiotic relationship between DMV and the LEA to get this done. So the DMV is really just as appreciative of us as we have been with them, sending their people out for 3-hour shifts in the summer to check eyes. So, but I imagine that that's probably going to be a big to do as right now. They're not taking appointments for eye checks now that they're allowing level 2s kids who have their permits to come in to get their level 2s without a driving test, and that's what they're all focused on right now with their appointments.
Being that you mentioned that, Devin, the driver license has recently changed policy, or at least I guess the process, and waiving, I think they hate using the word waive, but at least delaying the road test until the level 3. And I know that UNC Highway Research may want to weigh in on this. Is that, what does that do? What does that say? How does that impact putting more kids into the driving part without a supervising driver faster? Or does that impact it all?
And this might be something that Natalie is trying to actually get answers to questions to as well with what she's doing. Natalie, do you have anything to contribute to that?
Yeah, I'd say we're looking into that. And one thing we want to see is, well, talking to parents and sort of has waiving the behind the wheel test, sort of how is that influencing their decision making about their teen getting a license, and how comfortable are they with doing that? But right now we don't really have any answers, and we'll be looking at the licensing data too to see how sort of what the trends have been lately compared to historical averages.
Okay, I had a kind of a funny conversation with one of the DMV eye checkers. Well, I was out there just kind of checking on everybody and making sure everything was running smooth, and she said that she was out there and a kid had just gotten his level 2 license and did not need to take the driving test, and then promptly backed his car right into one of the examiner's vehicles in the parking lot. So they're kicking the can down the road. They are going to give, as Carl said, it's a delay. They are, once a student goes for their level 3 license after they've had their level 2 license for those 6 months, then they will have to take that driving test. But they're just kind of kicking the can down the road because, as far as I'm hearing right now, DMV doesn't plan to start reinstating driving tests until the state goes into phase 3 of their COVID plan. And that's what I'm hearing.
This is Natalie. I had a question about that just came to mind. So we know from licensing data that a lot of times teens don't actually go in for their level 3. They wait until they turn 18 to get their full license. So I'm wondering how that is going to impact them. So if they go in at 18 to get their full license, are they still going to be required to do the behind the wheel test, or will that provision no longer apply to them?
That's a good question.
I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that or not.
That's a good question. I don't have an answer to it right now. I know right now, as they, with their COVID procedure, if if you're 18 years old and you still are driving on a permit or don't have anything, they are allowing 18-year-olds to go in for level 2s, but without that driving test, that's all that 18-year-old can get. They cannot, right now, they cannot get that unrestricted license because they can't get a driving test.
Okay.
That they had a policy. They were, early on, the 18-year-olds were actually really impacted because they weren't allowing anyone 18 or over to go in for their level 2s. But then you had kids that were like about to go to college and they still didn't have their license, and they started realizing that, and parents were calling in and not just to DMV but to driver's ed, and I'm sure Carl got a lot of calls about it. But so they finally allowed for 18-year-olds to get their level 2s.
That's good to know, because I didn't know that had been changed already.
Yep. And that was only maybe 3 weeks ago, I think, that they started allowing that. Maybe 3-4 weeks ago.
Right. Again, this information that's on the screen is basically just talking points. We can roll several of these together. We've got connectivity, learning management, teacher training, curriculum, textbooks, interaction and evaluations. The thing that comes to mind is, and this has come up quite a bit, is the issue of disparity. Again, this is kind of an open discussion that we're having here, and where the advisory committee here is basically, they represent the stakeholders, or they hold a seat for the stakeholders they represent, and that if any of you who are on this call, there are 60 participants on this call. Some of you from the LEA level, if you have any feedback or any information that are specific challenges in your particular area regarding disparity, connectivity, learning management, teacher training, all of that, any of that, I would encourage you to speak up or bring that to the attention of the advisory committee now.
Mr. Logan, Kelly Cheek, she is the driver ed coordinator for Scotland County. She commented in the chat, and I'm going to read it to everyone. She says the major issue for her district is how her budget will handle the 1:25 ratio instead of 1:45, which is what they previously taught in the classroom. Her district does not charge a fee, and she doesn't foresee her board allowing her district to charge a driver education fee. She says her ADM allotment will not support the new 1:25 ratio. Do you have any suggestions for her?
Kelly, what exactly, what do you mean 125, 145? Am I missing something?
The new restrictions are 25 students in the classroom, and she previously
Oh,
told 40.
the ratio.
Yeah.
That is, what you're talking about is the state board guidelines, the state board policy doesn't allow more than 50 kids in the classroom. We recommend 35, but it doesn't allow for the up to 50. Budgeting is going to be a challenge for us at this time. We don't have any answers to that. We just don't have any answers for that at the moment. I do know that there are a number of districts who do not charge a fee, which would offset local costs. The 1 to 25 ratio, that is for teaching remotely. We recommend that not more than 25 be in a classroom. That is not in policy at the moment. We have experienced people who have been teaching remotely for a quite amount of time. That is not, more than that many students is not recommended. It's just not very recommended because of the fact that of the interaction and the management of those classrooms is not very good. So those are some areas that we will need to take a look at. But again, we're disparity. And so you bring up another one. Budgeting is an issue. What else might there be?
Carl, if I could chime in on the 25 students in a virtual classroom section. This is Devin Tanner. I'm the LEA coordinator in Wake County. We did put a lot of time into training teachers who are willing to take this on. And we probably have a good, Angie Stevenson, who I know is on here, probably has a better number of teachers. I think we're in the 20s where we've got teachers that are teaching online classes. And we are over 25 in most of ours. And it did take some trial and error to kind of, with regard to classroom management on computer and whatnot, we found that keeping them on the camera as with as much of those 30 hours as possible, even if we were giving them some work to do where they were off on their own, to keep them on camera, to just to kind of keep accountable those 30 hours. But with a good code of conduct, keeping kids accountable, calling out those kids, whether it be in the chat room or whatever, we have found that we can do 35 with the proper amount of training. And I know I'm telling Carl Logan this, the head of DPI, who's telling me that it's not recommended, and I'm telling him that we're doing it more. But we have been pretty successful in doing our 35 with very few problems. But again, we have put a lot of training. There's been a lot of collaboration between teachers. There's been a lot of stealing of good ideas between teacher and teacher, and so we just keep doing the best we can.
Moving forward, we have the communications portal that is built in Microsoft Teams that will allow the districts, the teachers, to share ideas. We are kind of in an uncharted territory, and so this is going to be very, very educational for all of us. Through and off record, out of this meeting, we will have the same ability for the advisory committee to have a discussion board for issues that arise between meetings. We only meet quarterly, so there's a number of things that we can discuss in those discussion boards and call meetings if needed. I just want to throw that in there. We do have a number of questions that are popping up in the chat room or in the chat. I see that Haywood County has a plan that they're using. The thing about it is that at DPI, at the state board level, we can provide guidance and the parameters on what you're to work in, but the districts do have the flexibility of managing to administer the program the best way they can. Again, we're trying to find out as many things that we can do at the state level to provide assistance in that. For specific questions relating to your area, if you will pop that in an email or we can discuss on the phone, I can give you some more guidance, insight on certain areas if you'd like. Right now, again, we are in Plan, where you're allowed to reopen schools in Plan B. Districts do have the authority or the flexibility to move down and remain in Plan C or remote instruction. Some of those challenges for Plan B would be the available staff, and the social distancing and the locations that you're offering the classrooms. State board policy recommends that classes be taught in a reasonable classroom and normal classroom environment. We don't normally think that cafeterias or large open rooms, gymnasiums are classroom environments for driver education. We don't see making modifications or doing things differently for driver education than you would do for an English class. So those things are obviously the districts do have the flexibility to move classrooms or decrease the size, but we do have to make sure that we are adhering to executive orders for the state from the governor's office. No other comments, questions? Let's see here. If we will bring behind the wheel into this, again, the House Bill 158 gave the authority to the districts to restart behind the wheel with guidance, using guidance from DPI. They can add to the guidance, but they can't take away. We can add that into the mix of the conversation here. There is a tremendous backlog of students. We realize that around the state. When parents or those who call to inquire about the getting their students in, we refer them back to the LEAs because each LEA has their own operating process. Any questions, comments from the committee? Go ahead.
So this is Tanya. I'm not from the committee. I was just trying to chime in around the class size and the restriction of the number. I'm not sure if Brandon Simmons is still on the call. However, some of the information that we gathered was based on best practices for online learning and engagement for students. So the class sizes for online learning for teachers to teach the students, keep them engaged for grading and making sure that the responses and all that stuff are taking place and that it's not just presentation, it's actually knowledge transfer. The recommendation was for a best practice around is like the 25 student class size. However, you can fluctuate that number to like 25, maximum 35, but just based on the best practice for blended online learning based on not just North Carolina virtual public school feedback, but some of the other virtual public schools that we had also reached out to. That was a best practice as it relates to an online learning environment that is teaching in a blended format.
And we would invite Brandon Brandon Smith. Is that you, Brandon?
It's
Brandon Simmons. Brandon Simmons.
Hey, Carl. Yeah, so that's right. I mean, you don't want extremely large class sizes where you're just presenting and they're sitting and getting. So Tanya was spot on that. Just wondering what other virtual schools you had reached out to.
I actually reached out to Ohio and then Florida, and then addition to that, when we was thinking about accessibility, and as we have been working with City Labs, with Utah University, though they don't really do the online learning, but they were doing a lot of data. They actually gave feedback as well on one of their calls as it related to a lot of the class sizes that they were seeing across the state as more adoption around digital online learning had been happening. We've also used Atlanta as well.
So all of the online learning agencies that you've contacted are consistent with our own North Carolina virtual public schools then, right, Tanya?
Yes, actually, many of them adopted a lot of some of the things that they were kind of leveraging from NCBPS. And I think Florida actually said that they are first, and then NCBPS is the second largest. So a lot of the Atlanta and Ohio, and I actually think what City Labs have also mentioned that they have worked with NCBPS in some capacity, but based on their feedback, yes. So it seems like NCBPS is also a leader in the digital learning world as it relates to blended. So whenever that number is said, I don't know why DMV set that number, but we did do some research behind the scenes before we began advertising the class size. So yes, Mr. Logan.
Actually, DMV collaborated with us, DPI, and that's where that number came from with them. So again, we do have representation on this committee from with an expertise in that particular area. So thank you, Dr. Simmons, for providing that background and your support of developing the program and continuing support and giving us guidance here. Any other comments? From the committee? I kind of took over, didn't I, Devin?
No, well, no, not at all. I'm grateful, Tanya and Brandon, for your insight on all of that. You know, it's as Carl likes to say, we want to, as much as we possibly can, have a semblance of uniformity in how driver ed is taught. But you know, even here in Wake County, from how we taught it in the summer to how we are going to start teaching it now that school has started, will change, and we'll need to adjust as well. Everything from eye checks to when they allow kids back onto campuses to the times that we're offering. We actually piloted both 3-hour chunks for 2 weeks and 6-hour chunks, and we realized that sticking with the 3-hour chunks of class time for 2 weeks as opposed to one was way more effective, even though in the summer we normally, when we're face to face, we normally do 6 hours of classroom, but that's face to face. And in Wake, we're getting more and more effective with this, but it's still not anywhere near what I'd like to see with regard to comparison to our blended program, where we're seeing our kids inside our classroom. So my hope is that when schools are going to a plan B, and in Wake County, that plan includes, kids going to school for 1 week and then being online for 2 weeks, and kind of having each campus at a third of its capacity. But it's going to be important for us to be able to get driver ed back into the classroom, in my eyes. And with regard to the social distancing, I personally am going to be requesting principals that we can be using media centers and or their auditoriums or whatnot, so that we can still social distance the kids, and we'll if the schools are requiring masks to be worn at all times, of course we'll adhere to all that. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge moving forward.
Devin, if you don't mind, I'd like to have a little bit of fun for the committee, and I'm going to put him on the spot. He's a young man, Mr. Wyatt Smith, who is, I understand, just got his license this past spring, but kind of got caught up into all this. Wyatt, what are the kids saying out there regarding licensing and driver education? Wyatt, you also attend I think you attend a private school or a charter school?
Yes, I attend a charter school in Meisenheimer called Greystone Day School. So mostly what I've heard from students regarding the pandemic and a lot of the things that's going on is I've been hearing a lot of frustration regarding the lack of driving tests. But there's been a mixed bag on, whether or not what people want to be done about it. So some people are frustrated because they can't take a driver's test, and they can't, originally that was the issue, but when it was shifted to where there was no road test and you could get your license and the road test would be postponed, that was very popular with a lot of students. So mostly I've been hearing a lot of frustration, but people are very pleased that they're able to get their licenses and hit the road.
Okay.
Carl, the other thing is my son has a friend who is just going to get his level 2, and the one of the frustrations for kids also that I'm hearing is that the DMV, the appointments are out anywhere from 60 to 80 days and even more so in some place. So I have a son who has a friend who was able to get an appointment an hour and 20 minutes away in Greensboro, and so I mean that's how far some kids are having to go to get an appointment that's not 3 months out, and maybe even further.
I personally had to drive from Albemarle to High Point, which is about a 2-hour trip.
Wow. So yeah, I imagine there are lots of challenges for students and parents trying to get the licenses.
Interesting.
So as far as looking at BTW on your Carl on your thing, backlog plan has been something that's been an issue for us in Wake County, in that we're one of those counties along with Mecklenburg that has about 3,000 kids backlog waiting to drive, but not all of our drivers have. We started July 13th. And I'm not sure. Reggie Fleck might have a good number. I'm not sure if he knows, but not all of our drivers are back yet. Whether it be based on their own circumstances or them not feeling comfortable coming back and driving with students. But so we have this normal backlog, and kids' birthdays don't ever stop. But we are driving, but we're playing with kind of a short deck still.
Wow.
So I don't know how long it will take to get the backlog down.
Ms. Barrows with PTA, comments? What are you hearing from parents regarding? Robin, are you there? I might have the name wrong.
Sarah Martin is our PTA representative.
Sarah Martin. Miss Barrows is, I used the wrong name. We have had a couple of districts who state that they are restarting this week while we're on this call. Other than that, other than that, Devin, I am, if the committee doesn't have anything to add more to what we're discussing, I guess we could consider us through with the agenda.
Okay.
Obviously, this is not a closed issue. This is going to be an ongoing issue. As I said before, DPI will be putting together a comprehensive poll to send out to all of the districts and it will take us probably a few weeks to get that information in. We do have the ability now that there is statutory support that requires the districts to respond to the information that we request from DPI, or we may withhold a certain amount of funds. So we are sure that we are going to receive a very comprehensive report. We'll share that with the UNC Highway Research Center. We're also looking forward to, obviously it won't be anything impactful in the beginning, but with DOT, with the statistical data that they may be collecting on this, as well as DMV, there is a reason or a need for us to continue our meetings with DMV on how and gathering information from them, data collection. So Natalie, I will get with you on that. We may have some meetings, some joint meetings with them to see what we can do to extract data from their current system and what we can do in the future to set it up to where we can gain more definite data that will give us an answer to what we're for our goal. So again, I don't think there's anything else that we would want to bring up from DPI, and if there's not anything else from the committee or the districts, as I said, a number of districts are on here. Then Devin.
Carl, can you confirm the date of the next meeting?
It will be November the what, Cindy? I just threw under the bus, didn't I?
What is it, second Tuesday?
Third Tuesday in November.
The next advisory committee meeting is November 17th.
Okay. All right. Well, if there is nothing else, I just want to thank everybody once again for coming. We'll convene again November 17th, and seeing as how day to day and week to week everything seems to be changing, I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about regarding where we're heading as a Drive Red program. And so at this time, I'd like to go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn.
This is Doug. I move we adjourn.
Okay, Doug Eller, to adjourn. Do I have a second?
All right. Consider us adjourned.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned. We'll see you guys November 17th at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Devin.